Hello again, and welcome back to Failure and Analysis. My name is Kevin Jordan, and we're back with another Theorycraft chat with the lads and lady. And this one's about part 2 of PvP we're about to join. It's been a couple weeks. It's been actually about a month. A couple of the previous chats occurred. I missed a couple of them, and a couple weeks we just took off. That's why there's been a delay since the last one. Apologies for that. I took a little vacation to California to catch up with some old friends and eat some food I hadn't eaten in a long time. That was very enjoyable. But hopefully we can get back to our regular schedule once a week, and I can continue participating as I've enjoyed these quite a bit. But yeah, let's get right into it rather than just talk about it. This week's about PvP. I think it's a round 2 of PvP. I may have said that already, but I forget things. Anyway, hope you enjoy it. Let's get in there.
Some reason. One sec.
I want to go.
There we go. Okay.
There we
make sure I was recording it.
Hello.
Okay. Hello. Hi everyone. Wow, quiet. Today. It's cozy in here. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure all that stuff was good. Y'all ready to roll?
Ready. How are you guys?
Okay. Welcome to Theorycraft. We are once again rejoined this week by the inimitable Kevin Jordan. I just want to welcome him back from all of us here. This is a weekly conversation between game developers and their players regarding game design and all sorts of other things. I forgot the log line today, but it's okay. We wanted to do a continuation of a previous segment on PvP here and also talk a little bit about New World, which entered its closed beta recently. But as usual, first, we're going to shake the rust off, just kind of talking about what's been up. Kevin, you've been away for a while, so maybe I just pass it your way. We heard a little bit about your California escapades from Chris last week.
All right.
But how's it been going in your world?
It's been going pretty good. Yeah, I had a great vacation. I was out in California for 2 weeks. Got to see Chris. Missed Candace, unfortunately. Life happens. But I really want to go back. So hopefully there will be opportunities in the future to get together with all 4 of the Theorycraft crew. That would be amazing. But
I would love that. Yeah.
Had a great time.
Yeah, I owe you
in
guys a nice
California.
dinner.
So yeah, had a blast. Got to see a lot of old friends, play some board games with people in real life, which was amazing, and eat some good food. And yeah, it was 2 weeks, but it wasn't nearly long enough. I had to drag my daughter back to Texas by the feet. She did not want to leave, but we had a great time. And then I got pretty sick getting off the plane. You always pick up something, it seems, and that dropped me pretty hard for a bit. But yeah, just this week I'm sort of recovering and trying to get back to streaming, and super happy to be back to chatting with you guys on Wednesday evening. So I've listened to the healer one, which I was chomping at the bit to talk more about. So I'm really happy that we're doing a part 2, because I do think there's a lot of those discussions that we could probably have part 17s of. They get so deep, but yeah, part 2s are nice. So here we are. I'm glad to be here.
It's awesome. You were definitely missed on that one for sure, and overall, but we've done our best to keep things going. On my personal front, I don't have a lot of interesting news. I've been playing some New World just over the last day or two, which we'll get into the main topic. But I got my second shot today, so we're all excited for that.
Very nice.
The long waking nightmare is finally coming to a close. They recently announced that they're opening the Canadian-U.S. land border up next month, like only unidirectionally, which is kind of weird, but it's very exciting for me because it means I can, drive across it, visit friends in Seattle and such. And so, yeah, it really feels like just kind of coming out of this weird social cocoon that I've been in for the last year and a half, like sort of cut off from a bunch of people that are quite close, but just one sticky border away. And so that's going to be good.
one step
Candace,
closer to the
what's up?
full theory craft
Yes.
meetup, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I know. I,
Yeah.
I actually am craving a trip down to, the Irvine, California area, which is not something I ever thought I would say again, but I am feeling it. Like I've gotten a lot closer to a bunch of people from there in the last year or two, and it feels like time. So sorry, I was trying to lead into Candace's exploits from the last week. What have you been up to?
Oh, uh, it's funny because whenever the restrictions lifted, I was like, hell yeah, gonna hang out with my friends in real life. And I scheduled, like, I had to keep it in my iPhone, like on a calendar, because I couldn't even keep track of all the stuff I was doing socially. And
Mm-hmm.
then, and then last week, um, I think I hit my wall. I'm just like, I got so overwhelmed by everything, and I was like, no, I'm gonna stay in my house and play video games. So I did that. It was really nice. I played some Sea of Thieves. I played some Crowfall. I was enjoying that. I was playing a Centaur cleric.
Oh, disgusting.
Yep.
Sorry.
And I actually picked up and started playing briefly Sun Valley, I think it's called. What is it? It's like a Stardew Valley RPG. It's cute. It's real cute.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm
interesting to see
missing
how
that mom.
people try to reacclimate to socialization because we've been deprived so long. It's going to probably feel very overwhelming, like you were saying.
Yeah, I was fine when I was doing it, and then I realized I just sort of like ran out of steam entirely, and I'm like, I
Hmm.
can't see other humans for just put me back in my house, please.
Right.
Sun Haven. It's called Sun Haven. Very cute game. Early access though.
Last but not least, Chris, why don't you catch us up in your world?
Not much. I mean, I was down. I downloaded a New World last night, and I was going through the intro experience and the tutorial. I mean, which we're going to talk about later. But now with this like whole kind of like video card scare of like, does it fry your video card? I'm like,
Right.
I don't know. Do I want to play this now? I don't know. Like,
Mhm.
It
yeah,
cannot be
Yeah,
worse.
that's fucking terrifying. You never want to hear about that happening in the middle of this too.
Yeah, exactly.
The chip
You,
crisis.
yeah, the everything crisis. Really, it's stopping. Apparently, like Taco Bell's out of chicken. Weren't you linking something about that, Chris? Like,
yes.
fucking
They're
everything is
not
in
just
short
out of
supply
chicken.
now.
They're also out of beef and tortillas and hot sauce. So.
And hot sauce. Like,
And hot sauce.
boy,
I was telling a friend of mine yesterday, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they've been out of hot sauce for like months." I was like, "Really? What the hell?"
that's insane.
They also haven't
I
used chicken or beef for like decades, so
yeah, so they're not really
Well played.
impacted there. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
god. Taco Bell jokes. What year is it?
Chicken,
I
it's
love
so
it.
hot these days.
Mm-hmm,
Every
mm-hmm.
chicken sandwiches everywhere, and I saw Popeye's pre-bought chicken that lasts that will last for like 6 months ahead of schedule, so they could release some sort of new chicken nuggets or something like that.
wow.
So it's like, yeah,
Wow.
Yeah,
world we
I
live
saw
in.
that article too about them pre-hoarding it, but I hadn't read the
Yeah.
part where they bought a brand of chicken that can last for 6 months. What is that?
Well, I think they're just freezing it in
Terrible.
anticipation for their
Okay.
Right.
product release, right?
Wow, just
Nope,
ready.
shelf stable. Just complete. Just
Shelf-stable
salt it.
chicken.
Yep.
Hmm.
Vacuum pack
Mhm.
it. Nothing
Yep.
can go
They,
wrong.
it's actually just millions of live chickens that they are like penning up to kill on time, so
That's
they're
right.
keeping them around.
Cryostasis. We figured out how to do it for chickens.
That's all.
Yeah.
I have those dumb sorts of thoughts all the time where I'm like, man, if you don't take a plant out of the ground, it stays ripe for like a long time, and it's just those modern moments of forgotten genius. All right, let's talk about game news. I think the one that was really big in all of my circles last week was that Steam Deck. The announcement
yeah.
came out of nowhere, and then everybody was really obsessed with getting one. Did any of you try engaging with the pre-order process? Are you especially keen on it? Like, what's the pulse on that around here? Did you get one, Chris? Did you get in
I
line?
have not, but I won't lie, I had FOMO as they were being purchased and the release date was going up. But then I just was like, am I really gonna play this? Like I was just analyzing my use case, right? Like I might use it like on a plane or something, but how often am I flying? And then, yeah, I'm just gonna play on my PC or on my TV and stream it from my PC, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. For me, but then the other thing, I just love gadgets, and so I thought, well, maybe I'll just get it because I love gadgets. But I'm like, I just can't justify the purchase, so I haven't gotten one yet. But I do think it's pretty cool, though, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I can't get enough
I
time
think
with
it's
the gadgets
cool.
I have. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still need to play. I still have like Switch games to finish. I just like impulse bought Mario Maker 2 so that I could play that because I had FOMO over that. So
How isn't that like from a year or two ago? That's not super new,
listen,
is it?
listen.
It's
Yes,
late FOMO. Okay.
I know.
Delayed FOMO.
But
Um,
my, but the other thing about it too is just like, um, I tried using the Steam. Well, it wasn't like I never bought the hardware for the other Steam device. It was like a Steam Deck, or not Steam Deck. It was like a what was it
the
called? Where you like
link,
Steam
the
Link.
Steam Link.
Steam
Hmm.
Link. There you go. I love the idea, but I have an NVIDIA Shield, which just does kind of the same thing. And you get mixed results with it. Not every game works well being
Mm.
Steam linked or whatever. And you got to constantly go into the game, change the resolution, change keybinds. They don't always work. Doesn't always pick up the controller. It depends what controller you use. It's just there's a lot of hoops you got to go through, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the problem with having an open ecosystem versus like a closed one with the Switch, because everything's bespoke for the Switch, right? Or the Mac or whatever, or iOS
Hmm.
versus Android. It's just so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they navigate that with the deck.
I mean, that's the
Yeah,
thing I'm most excited about, though. Like, I didn't line up to get one, but I think like a major entrant into the space in that form factor, especially being Steam, that already is really trying to leverage this custom remapping with Steam input and formerly the Steam controller. I think getting them into more people's hands portably, getting more developers thinking about, seamless switching between controller and keyboard mouse and I don't know, using whatever other kind of axes that device has got. I don't know if it has like a gyroscope in it or in the controllers. I didn't check it out, but I would always like to see more support for that stuff because I also love playing things from a controller these days and portably. I can see what they're trying to do. Being at my computer after work increasingly just sucks. So sorry, Candace, I totally interrupted you there.
oh no, it's okay. Honestly, like if I'm being super honest, I feel a little bit burned by Valve's hardware. I did buy the Steam
Hmm.
Link. It did die on me. They did discontinue it. The controller was the same way. They discontinued that. And so if my confidence level, if I've been honest about the gauge of my confidence level, it's pretty low. So
Hmm.
they're gonna have to do something probably to reconcile for that, or at least to mention like "Hey, this is something we're actually going to continue fucking supporting to
Hmm.
instill confidence in the
Hmm.
buyer, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, my thought process was pretty much similar to Chris's. It was kind of like, I haven't played my Switch at home in X months. I bought a Vive and I used it for, under 10 hours before I realized I wasn't that into doing it. I bought a Steam controller and actually didn't really like it. I bought a Steam Link and never used it. And so I'm like, okay, this is enough data points for me to go like, I don't need one of these on day one. Like I should get one on day one because all my friends are, but realistically, like I might not use it. So, but I'm happy it exists. I mean, I'm with you. I don't know that it'll last, but if like we can start feeling like, gaming PCs of this size and form factor are an established thing, even if Valve's not in the market, I think that's cool. That market could always use a bit of a shakeup. So, what else? The race for world first happened. We were all kind of chatting about that in here. It did not end up going into a reset, so we dodged some drama there. The 45% gate. Final Fantasy 14 continues to climb. Chris, did you have anything else that you had on your mind, or does anybody, or else do we want to start talking about New World or
Well, I mean, there's this like
no?
huge story that just came out about like the Blizzard having claims of sexual harassment and all of that, and so I think that's just like a going to be a huge story. I see everyone just like all the tweets are happening. It's just like part of the big conversation right now. So I think that's notable, but I don't really have much to kind of comment on there other than it is an issue for, you know, there Kevin's also familiar with this too. I mean, all of us are, but you know, it was different. Some things that were like common and fine 10 years ago or today not okay, right? And there was always so many just different rap parties and string lock parties and stuff where everyone just drinks and has a good time, but you know, when you just with alcohol and parties like that, it just it's a breeding ground for inappropriate behavior, right? So, um, as much as I did like those parties and did have good times and memories, you know, is it worth it? You know, in this era, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. Yeah, and I don't know how comfortable I am even commenting on it, knowing so little, you know, at this point, because
Yeah,
like
no.
Yeah,
I just
well,
became
let's-
aware of it. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to
it
get
happened,
handled in the
everybody.
courts, but I think it's
I mean,
yeah, it did happen. I think it is part of a trend of, you know, game dev studio culture reformation that fortunately is gradually taking hold, and you know, I hope this plays out well for, you know, everybody involved, and
yeah, the takeaway
justice
for
gets
me,
done.
the takeaway for me is just we are just as a society are still struggling to figure out a lot of this stuff. What's appropriate, what isn't, why isn't it appropriate, you know? And so this will be just another, like you said earlier, a data point for us to hopefully learn something and grow as a, you know, society with regards to these things. So that's my hope, is just we keep talking about it, we keep expanding the conversation to, you know, get to a better place in the future, rather than just everything's behind closed doors and all kinds of crap still just happens. And
Oh yeah.
so that's my hope, is
Yep.
just that we learn from all this and can be better in the future.
Yeah, yeah. There's been institutional grossness in the game industry for a long time, and I hope that this puts a point on it for everybody involved, and that keeps going. Okay, moving into the main topic. Last time when we were talking about PvP on here, we were mostly discussing just like how the attitudes towards PvP in game design have really evolved over the last 20 years, kind of going full circle from post-UO toxicity into it gradually coming back into now, you know, ruthless Rust style winner take all stuff really being back in season. But we talked also about how players tend to think that they want a really fair PvP experience and to keep things really competitive, but sometimes something gets lost there when you don't have those kind of asymmetrical moments that, you know, like Kevin, you said, you know, it starts with a gank, and Chris related a story about some wedding gone wrong. So we talked a lot about, yeah, that was awesome, the mind control part.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about like where PvP has been, where we've been attitudinally. We also have a new MMO. We have several new ones coming out, but New World is just coming out. I don't know that it is doing a ton to like really inventively push the conversation around PvP. I've checked out some of its modes, but I guess I just kind of wanted to make this this chat a little bit more about, you know, where PvP kind of might be headed. Like, is it possible to get players more comfortable with some of the, you know, the friction and the asymmetry around power imbalances or matchup imbalances that can happen in these organic, you know, open world experiences? You know, is this like bad? Is this medicine for them that people need to learn to embrace and to not have everything so sanitized and instance divided all out war mode? Like, are we? Do you think that we might move more towards that, or what sort of experiences would maybe you like to see? As usual, I'm opening like a giant umbrella here, so really anybody take it away.
Right. So just to not let it be the conversation be narrow, because that would be ridiculous. I'm going to expand it even further to have PvP also include just any kind of interaction between players that's competitive, and this could be social, it can be resource acquisition. Everyone's struggle to be prestigious in one way or another, and I do think that an appetite has grown for it in like the last decade, because I think a lot of games have, like you were saying, tried to sanitize or make everything kind of fair. Inventions like personal loot and what was the other one I was going to mention? I can't remember, but yeah, things like that kind of give everyone their fair share without having to compete for things. Like a resource node, I think in WoW, like everyone gets to tap it for full effect, right? All of these things have pushed towards, everybody just, all you have to do is show up and you're guaranteed your fair share of all the resources, rather than kind of any kind of competition, whether it's, outright ganking of each other or just competing, in time and space and knowledge and skill for all the available things that are out there. So, and I think it takes, a lot of that, a lot of the intrinsic experience out of the game. We talked a lot about in UO, or not in UO, but with WoW way back in the day, not to create a utopia, allow for players to the full breadth of interactions from positive to negative. And I think that's I still think that's good design, because that's what creates experiences that are memorable, for good or bad. And so I think I'd like to see games push back in a lot of ways. And to reference New World, it came up in my channel yesterday how, the trees are finite. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it's like someone can get the idea that they're going to farm all the trees, right? And take all the wood, and that's going to leave none for anyone else. And that was an intriguing idea for me, because obviously you can already see the friction between people's responses to that concept. It's like, oh, that's terrible, or that's awesome. Like some people want that competition. Other people feel like, yeah, well, what happens if I can't get any wood and I need it, So
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Are the trees finite, you're saying? Or
I don't
that's an
know.
idea?
That was something that was mentioned, and I don't know for sure, but
Yeah, because that's like a UO thing, right?
yeah, and the response to that is, well, that's how colonization works, like, so it's kind of realistic that if somebody comes and cuts down the trees, that's all there is, right? So, obviously the key difference there is, yeah, but if you're the sweaty no-lifer that cuts down all the trees, you can't just log off and take all your trees with you in real life, right? There's a stockpile of it somewhere, and you're sitting on it, and if people want it, they just kill you and take it all, right? If they want it badly enough. So, but I'd like to see more games sort of push in those directions, not just with direct PvP, but with competition. And this can, and Ashes of Creation is kind of, it's checking a lot of those boxes. There's only so many flying mounts, only one person can be mayor, like there's a lot of things that are competitive from the game's inception. And I think those kinds of ideas are powerful, and I think the appetite for them has been growing because a lot of games have been, steering away from it for so long.
Yeah, people just can't get enough of ruthless capitalism and wealth inequality in their real life. They need the games to mirror it too.
That's right.
Utopias are in fact maybe a bit boring when things are a little bit too easy. Like, I don't know. I've only played the game for an hour or two so far, and most of my observations have just been around, what feels good to do. I don't understand a lot of the systems yet. I'm going in kind of blind, but once I started feeling like, I obviously want to level up my weapons as fast as possible, and you do that by tagging mobs. And then once I realized maybe that getting only one swing at a mob is enough to gain like a full mob-sized chunk of weapon experience, right. I started feeling like, well, why wouldn't I just like hang back and kind of let other people and just kind of run by and just dink mobs at a distance with a life staff when they're pretty
Yeah.
close. And it's totally unnecessary to do at this point because things respawn kind of quickly. But it felt weird that my brain kind of already went there. And it so this is totally off topic, but maybe it's not. Like new MMO worlds, there's nothing else like them. You know, you have to experience that first month or two before sort of a meta has solidified, and also while people's sort of attitudes and conduct are open to change because they don't know what the vibe is going to be like overall. Like somebody ran up behind me today while I was soloing with my life staff, which is a ranged weapon, you know, that also gives you a heal ability. And I'm just dinking on mobs, and someone ran up behind me on voice chat, and he goes, What are you up to, you fucking range spamming little shit? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, God, what a gamery thing to say. Just ran by me and did that. 2 seconds later, I just like used my one ability to heal him because he was, you know, wordlessly just did that. And he was like, thanks, man. Thanks, me. You're too kind. And then like I did it 2 or 3 more times, and he was just like obsessed with me. But he started out in like the most aggressive way possible. He was like gatekeeping my
Right.
farming mobs at level 2. I'm like, geez, this is so harsh to start the fucking game out this way. And then he calmed down, and I felt really heartened that the game, it reminded me of Guild Wars 2, where you get experience for resurrecting somebody, and anybody can resurrect. And the fact that like you're just sort of encouraged to heal anybody because mana's cheap and it's easy to target. It snaps on. You see health bars in the world, like Candace was talking about, you know, last time. Like, and suddenly the conduct just shifts towards I naturally want to heal because that's like the action I can take. And then I don't know, people start simmering down.
So what I'm
So
hearing
that's my
is
little culture nugget so far. Yeah.
that what I'm hearing is that the removal of arcane intellect, being able to buff other players in WoW, was the worst change ever and led to all the toxicity. Because with one buff, one positive action, you were able to transform another player from asshole to super friend.
I don't think you're wrong. Yeah. People know that buffing feels good. So
right.
I don't know. Chris, did you have any other thoughts on like the evolving kind of PvP asymmetry, changing attitudes thing, or do you want to just jam on new world discussion?
I mean, I think a big trend that I'm seeing is just sort of, I think in the beginning it used to be PvE and PvP, and PvE was you fight against creatures, PvP you fight against players, and what you see a lot now is like a mix, right? And it's just like they both coexist, and that's kind of always kind of what WoW World PvP was, is that players are out in the world fighting things for their own benefit, and they may get into an encounter, and that was interesting, right? And you're seeing that a lot in modern games. Like that's what Rust is. That's what, you know, a lot of these survival PvP games are. Like there's even a new sort of genre now that's like, I don't know if it's that new, but I see it so much more now, which is like the PvEVP kind of terminology of like it's mix of like PvP can happen, but it's not like Overwatch where 6 people spawn on one side and 6 people spawn on the other, and whoever kills each other the most wins, right? Like that's a different. That's like that the arena style. I think is, you know, still of course really popular, but I think what we're seeing more and more now is this sort of kind of mixture of the two, which I think is interesting, right? And it goes along with the whole kind of player stories kind of thing that resonates with players who stream and all of that. And so I don't know. I think that's kind of one of the big trends I've been seeing.
Yeah, that kind of goes with Kevin saying that PvP is best with a little bit of PvE sprinkled in last time too.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I think I made this comment in the first talk about PvP, but people are going to compete. Anytime there's anything to fight over, they're going to. And what PvP allows for is an outlet for that when things just get bad and they can't resolve the problem any other way. And it doesn't always work out in your favor, right? Like you think, oh, I'm going to resolve this dispute by killing this guy, and sometimes he kills you. and then you create a dynamic which is like, okay, well, I guess he gets to get away with this because I don't have the power to deal with it, but now my goal is to not continue fighting but go get more power and come back and try to tip the scales, right? And in the absence of that sort of outlet, I've found people get even nastier to each other when there's no PvP. It ends up being like calling GMs on them and say they're exploiting, or lying about things they've done, or bad mouthing them in town about their reputation, and things like that. So those are all forms of competition as well, and PvP, but it's not direct, and it can be even nastier at times. So the outlet can also serve this weird purpose of giving players a means to which to establish, that power hierarchy sort of thing, which can be good for them.
Candace, I'm jonesing to involve you so badly on this, but just so you know, the floor is open anytime you do feel like you have something you can wade in on. I know that this is kind of a touchy subject for you, thanks to like overlapping clauses and your fame within the game industry.
All I've been thinking about this whole time is like PvP is a part of the virtual world, and I'm stringing together this analogy that's not good, but I think of an MMO, like in my opinion, as a huge virtual world, right? And so one of the things that Kevin had said earlier was talking about like sanitized, very fair rules, MMR, PvP versus like open world PvP. And I started thinking about the differences of that. And to me, the real life analogy is kind of like, well, like first of all, there's people who want to be different things in a virtual world. They're the people who want to exert some sort of superiority over other people, either with item level or performance or guild status or monetization efforts, or like there are people who play for the status. There are people who just play to take part of the world and not just to absorb the story, but just I am in this virtual community with somebody else and I'm going to take whatever role I choose. And there's people who like to just amass. And that's what I keep thinking about for open world PvP, where that's like the huge distinction. Like, I don't think a lot of people go into an open world brawl expecting it to be fair. I think it's the other way around, where you want to fight this person before their fucking buddies show up. And hopefully your buddies will also show up. And then it'll be kind of like instead of scheduling a party where all your friends come over and you get a head count, there's 25 people, and you get exactly enough cake to feed all 25 people or whatever. It's more like just going to the bar or going to the brewery or something and seeing a couple of friends there and sitting with them and having that kind of chance encounter with your buddies. And then imagine another group of your buddies shows up and another group of your buddies, and that just feels very different than throwing a party. So like the difference between raiding or sanitized PvP is that you're like scheduling and throwing that party, whereas world PvP is just this kind of thing that is happening, and it's amazing just because of the serendipity of its occurrence.
Right. It's like the difference
And
between listening to your favorite song and then hearing it on the radio, accidentally or.
way better expressed. Yes, that's way better way to say it. So I just think about virtual worlds in this way where they're like PvP is a part of that. And even if you're not a PvP person, you might be one of the people that likes to partake of the virtual world, and you like to hear, "Hey, we're all at the brewery right now. Do you want to hang out?" Which the MMO version of that could be, "Hey, we're at Terran Mill and we're destroying some alliance or something like that. Do you want to hang out?" And so now I just keep trying to make these real life parallels, because really a virtual world is just having an identity in a world that is not this world. And not to say that it means that you don't have a satisfying life in the real world. It just means that you like to have an identity in a virtual world, And so I just kind of keep ruminating over those
Yeah,
analogies.
and you touch on one of the what I think is the secrets to, or the magic of the recipe of what MMOs, why they're distinct in as a genre and why they're so special. and it is that sense of world. And the example to to base it off what you were just talking about there, like once the party gets going at the bar, right? Like word spreads, messages start going out, man, we're all at the bar, come on down, and then more people join. And then after the experience happens, like people are talking about it for the next couple days. Everyone who wasn't there is super pissed because they missed it, right?
Exactly.
And that's a huge thing. I think that the game, because the genre has changed in such a way where people now, they kind of know, well, as soon as I show up, I'm going to get my fair share until I log off, that I can show up at any time. The game is waiting for me to appear before it does anything, as opposed to the world is happening, it's going on, everyone's participating, and you're missing out, right? Every second you're not there, stuff is happening and you're not a part of it, and it makes you feel like compelled to just be a part of this other world. And that's a really important part of the recipe that I think has suffered over the years in the genre, with this idea that, don't worry, we'll wait for you, and then we'll trigger all the content as soon as you push the right buttons and get in the right queues and all that, right? We're waiting for you to show up, as opposed to the other way around, which is people are here, they're doing things, and you are missing out. You better get here as fast as you can.
Yeah, another thing Candace kind of said too that I like is just that, the way to see PvP or anything in an MMO virtual world is that people come into the game and everybody has a different role that they want to play. Whether it's I want to be the person who goes around, and causing trouble and, messing with other players, and so you're a PvPer, or someone who just likes to craft things for other people, or someone who likes to build communities and you're a guild leader. And so the more ways, the more vectors, the more opportunity for different people to want to explore different types of way to play the game, socially or actively in the gameplay is important, right? And to carve out those sort of ways for them to do that. I've found it interesting with that game Palia. It's a kind of Animal Crossing MMO. I was following their Discord, and a lot of people in the Discord are kind of like, "Why don't you have PvP? You should add PvP." It's like the most upvoted request, like
Right.
thing to add to the game, right? Because they've said they don't want to have PvP. The whole game is the idea of it is it's supposed to be like a non-violent sort of like more kind of like Animal Crossing, right? You can't
Yeah,
kill the
yeah.
villagers in Animal Crossing, right? But it shows that there is a player who's not served in this MMO, this virtual world, which is the one who does kind of like PvP, right? And so um, I just found that interesting. And you always see the same phenomena every time a new MMO comes out. Is like, where's the crafting system? Where's the player housing? Where's the guild system? Where's PvP? Where's raiding? It's like all these things are all different, like, pieces for different types of players who come in the
Yeah.
world.
And I think a majority of players want to be noteworthy in one of those axes, that you talk about. It doesn't always have to be the traditional ones, but I think like the crafter wants to feel like people want his goods at some point. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that breeds
People want to be
competition.
needed.
Yeah, and it's usually social, right? We're all social, animals, right? So at some point, just needing my craft goods, or being invited to a guild, or even just invited to a group, can be really satisfying. So people are trying to be their best selves along whatever axis they choose in these virtual worlds, trying to get some kind of notoriety. Usually there are still some people that are just like, I just want to be left alone, but and that's fine too. But I think the majority of players are trying to find sort of their place in the world, and they've picked this one axis to excel at, and then the competition begins on how to be noteworthy or special, or in some cases the very best, depending on your ambition level. And so yeah, giving them options, and feeding the competition, or allowing the competition to be fun and fruitful and rewarding, is really important part of the game design, and having mechanics that strip all that competition out can strip a lot of the why do I do it kind of out of it as well.
And it's also important to mention that since you talk about why I do it, it's it's really tricky to not make the player feel like they're playing the game the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be the death of somebody's desire to play the game, where if you're the person who does like to engage socially, and then something's telling you that you have to PvP, or that you
Right.
have to raid, or that you have to, in order to stay engaged socially with your friends, you have to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's where you tend to lose affection from the player.
Yeah.
It's pretty palatable at this point that you'd have to get to max level, but I challenge that you you might not even need that
Yep,
with
for
some
sure.
paradigms. I mean,
Yeah, I
Genshin
don't.
Impact is not an MMO, but you can still play with anyone any adventure rank,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool. If it were like a big open virtual world, that would be pretty dope. But um, it's like you take their agency away from them when you tell them the way they play is wrong. But
Yeah.
there's so many ways that you can message to the player that they're doing it incorrectly, and it's not always necessarily like you don't get the best in slot gear from here, because then the game just becomes this cacophony of noise. But there are other subtle things that that a game can do to tell you that you're playing it incorrectly.
Mm-hmm. And that's a yeah to define the trap for designers there, because I couldn't agree more. The trap for designers there is, well, we need them to be playing forever, and so what's the best way to do that? Well, force them to do all the things, all the content in the game, rather than the ones they enjoy. And so all the rewards are sort of linked up. You better do this, for a week, and that for a week, and all the things for a week, rather than letting people just figure it out and have fun in their areas and feel really rewarded. And so that's the
Right.
trap, is that designers should try to avoid. You want to encourage the interaction and the crossover, but you don't want to force it, and it's a really fine line.
Totally. And another important distinction there is you sometimes it's less nefarious than what it seems like when it seems like a game says, "Well, fuck me, we don't have enough content. Guess I better force him to do it all," which it totally does happen. And I'm gonna like nod my head there, but sometimes it's even less nefarious than that, and it's, "Oh, people don't know that you can do this thing, so why don't
Mm-hmm.
we put a splash screen when you log in, telling you that this thing exists and that you should do this thing, and fuck, we'll even give you like bonus incentive to do it."
Right.
And you're doing it, out of kind of like, did you know this other thing exists, or do you want to give this thing a try? Um,
Yeah, you
unless
started with a
unless
good
like
intention.
exactly, but then that first thing that someone sees when they log in is the screen that's telling them that like whatever it is you logged in to do is
Mm-hmm.
fucking wrong.
Right. Because there isn't a thing there on crafting. It's about PvP. Why isn't there a thing on crafting? Oh, great. Now everyone's going to come over and start crafting.
Yeah.
We're
Oh, sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Chris. Nope, no, you, all you.
Oh, no, no. I was gonna say, we should open up the floor. I got 20 minutes left. I opened it up. If anyone has any comments or anything on PvP, go ahead and raise your hand and or questions for us for the group. But one thing that I also want to chat about is I wanted to get Kevin's take on that Crowfall game. So that game was in development, I think, for 5 years. It has a lot of luminaries from MMOs working on it and advisory board. They have Raf Kosser on the advisory board, others. And so I was curious on like what the fallout of that game, because that game is, it seems like one trend I see a lot with the new MMOs is they do have kind of a PvP bent, and that one does have one. New World does too. Um, in that Crowfall game, it's like kind of all about like large scale battles and like sieges
Mm-hmm.
and territory control, kind of like God, what's that game called? It's an isometric
Shadowbane?
one.
No,
No, no, no. It's an isometric
not
top
that far
down
back.
with territory control. I can't think the name. Anyways, yeah, so but the thing with these games is they never really kind of catch on. I don't know why. I mean part my view is like these mass scale PvP things always sound cooler than they actually
Mm-hmm.
are, just because the
Yeah.
reality is you're just stuck in a pile of people, everyone's being AoE'd, and you can barely move, and you're all slowed, and or it's like what I used to call player versus wall. It's just like
Right,
you're
right.
fighting this wall, and everyone's hitting the wall, and
That's
it's
right.
vibrating. It's just I don't know. Yeah. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I haven't actually played Crowfall or followed it very closely. There was another game I feel like that had Crow in the name a long, long time ago, and for some reason I almost immediately like worried about it. But yeah, when games set out to be pretty hardcore PvP or RVR focused, I know they're in an uphill battle, and I come back to how difficult it is to make a good MMO, and those kinds of MMOs are even more difficult to make, because the performance of things has to be really spot on, the interactivity has to be really good, everything has to be in players' eyes more balanced. Like the competition is so in your face that people are going to call out all the little things, and it's going to be a deal breaker for them. But just also in general, like for years and years after WoW was made, and you guys have probably heard this too, but WoW, the comment is WoW wasn't that good a game. It came out at the perfect time. It got lucky, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't really that special, right? And when I think about the time right now, the market right now, it is the perfect time to get lucky, right? I mean, the thirst and the crave for this audience to have a brand new MMO to play.
Totally.
If it showed a little bit of potential and was mediocre, I think it would be a pretty big hit, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when I hear about Crowfall or games like it that come out, they don't really grab the attention. They don't last very long beyond, their opening announcement. And that's the feel I've been getting about Crowfall. It tells me that they're either struggling with the potential or that they're just falling below the mediocre bar in a lot of ways, or very important
Yeah.
ways, which just
Yeah.
it just speaks to, and like you said, so many years, so much talent, so many dollars have been put into this, and they can't even hit the mediocre with a little bit of potential mark, is what I feel. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean that crown is just waiting there, right? And even not even grabbing the
Hmm.
crown, just being reasonably successful. Like a good amount of success is just there for the taking, but it's so tough to make a decent MMO. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, I just see a lot of
Man,
games that can't quite
yeah.
do it.
It's funny you should bring up decent MMOs, because Amazon Game Studios New World just entered closed beta, and I am so far finding it to be surprisingly decent.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say we kind of talked a little bit about this thirst and the mass migration that would happen a bit last week. I want to say with the Final Fantasy 14 WoW thing,
Mm-hmm.
putting my hat in the ring, New World has something to it, that makes me want to play it to max level.
Nice.
And I think that thing that it has in it is that the presentation and the response of the combat and all of the fluidity feels
Mm-hmm.
sound, even in a way that Final Fantasy 14's doesn't to me. And to me, that's always been like this irreplaceable piece from World
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Warcraft, that like you got spoiled so hard with how incredibly the animations switch, how fast the button,
Hmm.
response
Mm-hmm.
translates into what you want to do. Like it's just keyframed to oblivion, and it's so buttery smooth. I feel like New World has a bit of that, and also the sound presentation for me is just like even above and beyond. Like not the caliber of assets that are being put into World of
Mm-hmm.
Warcraft, because the sound team is so fucking impressive,
Mm-hmm.
but it has the benefit of a brand new modern engine that is not
Right.
labored by years of tech debt in the ways that WoW's is. And so for me, it feels like a very modern game,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize how much I'm kind of basic, and I actually did really want like modern production sensibilities and systems in that flavor of game. and I can see myself sticking with it for a while, but I already obviously can see points that might eventually become troublesome. What happens when I master all the weapons? Do I really care kind of about the world? Like the presentation of it to me feels a little brown, like it's not. And I also do think that the overall world build, something about the presentation of it, I think tilts the game towards feeling a little less collaborative for me, and feeling, I don't really know how to put it, but the World of Warcraft is inviting. It's colorful. It's got like a variety of kind of quirky races and characters. Like it really does feel like a cool alternate reality. There's something about the way New World even just kind of looks and plays that makes me feel like this could be like a permanently running server of just random kind of Rust avatars. And it's a bit like, it's got kind of a hard edge on it that I think might not keep us, like, you know, a massive part of the general player base around forever, right? It's like a little off-putting in some ways. I don't really know how to articulate it there, but I'm really happy to see something in that space with, you know, combat that really responds and you click, doesn't feel delayed. Like it is cool, and I'm like, boy, if this were like the bones of a thing that I could feel reassured would hang around for like 2-3 years, like I'm getting the crew, because like, let's do this. The first 2 months are always a blast.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, always I think what you always see with these MMOs, right, or any MMO that comes out, usually a big one that's like New World or Star Wars or Age of Conan or any of these games like this, is that they always do really well in the first couple months, but there's always that 6 months test, right?
Yeah.
Will they be able to play the game? Yeah, like come over there, they poop socket, they do every little inch of content in the game, and they're just like, well, okay, I'm out, you know. But the trick is, can you keep them engaged for over 6 months or 3 months, 4 months, right? That's really hard, and that's testing the system designers to see if they can create an engaging loop that is fun but doesn't feel like, you know, time gating or grinds, and that's hard to do, you know.
Also,
so
just
we'll
the
see
original
with New
offering
World
of content. We felt so pressured by EQ because it had had 1 or 2 expansions by the time we were going to release, and we were just like, how can we compete with all that content? And so the first offering of World of Warcraft's content was massive, and it's a very high bar, you know, like I said, to keep people engaged. Because, like, imagine, you know, WoW coming out right now with the amount of content it had in vanilla and the way people play games now. How long would it take for them to, you know, be downing Ragnaros, have Ragnaros on farm, you know, right? It's tough to say. It was really tough to say.
That will be the challenge, yeah. Let's go ahead, and sorry about that. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say we have Wowfell up here. If you have a comment or question for the group or anything.
Yeah, hey, what's up, guys? Big fan of the podcast, and big fan of WoW. I do a lot of PvP and stuff, and I feel like the game is missing like a very core part in PvP, which is like having a zone for PvP. Like I remember in Wrath of Lich King we had Winter Grasp and Tol Barad, and I feel like that was like a really big like part of the game, because you would like win a battle, and then there would be like a raid inside, and that would introduce like the PvPers to more like a PvE environment, and like you can get a mix of the raid gear going there, and I feel like it like heavily incentivized world PvP, and WoW as an MMO I feel like has a lot of potential for PvP and has like one of the largest communities, and like it's sad that they don't take a lot of advantage in that category. What do you guys
No,
think?
I mean, I agree with you. I think that's always something. I think that's what like kind of what Kevin's saying, to do kind of a persistent PvP zone, or to have some sort of big objective that spans a zone or zones or whatever, is like one of the hardest things to do. And I mean, doing an MMO already is insanely hard. I think probably the hardest project in the industry. But then doing that, I think, is up there as one of the most challenging things for a bunch of different reasons. One is that you're beholden to basically player behavior. It doesn't matter what your design says. If the players, ignore it and do something else and just band up and go on Discord and run around in a circle and kill everybody or whatever it is, what are you gonna do about that, right? Like, so anyways, I do agree with you. Like, that's kind of things that WoW as a game should invest in because my view is that they should do things for the game that only an MMO can do, right? Don't do things that other, try to emulate single player games or, things for, whatever. Like do things that only massive multiplayer games can do, and that's one of them, right? So,
Yeah, I agree.
I agree, and I want to add to that too, where using another analogy slash life story, um, in back in my day, like 2010 or something, I was really into electronic disco music. Like a lot, it's electronic dance music.
yeah.
I really like to go raving. I love to go clubbing. I love Dead Mouse. Dead Mouse was big back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And where's the
And
story going? So in 2010, Activision threw a party at the fucking what center? I can't remember, but there were like headliners, man. Like
yeah,
Eminem
LA,
showed up,
Rihanna.
Rihanna showed up. They had this fucking person who climbed to the top of a pole, and was pretty sure they were gonna die, and it was really scary. And I was just waiting for Dead Mouse. I couldn't wait for fucking Dead Mouse because I was expecting. As soon as he came out of that stage, and of course he like was raised from the floor, and like all the lights went out, and there was like smoke and like the lights, everything that a rave needs, right? They were like, oh, this is we've now transitioned to rave music, so we're going to emulate a rave here. And nobody got out of their seats and danced.
I remember
Whereas like
that. Yeah.
if it had been a
Yeah.
rave, then everybody would be losing their fucking minds, Dead Mouse coming out, right? And my point to this is
Oh
that
my
you
God.
can't force people to want something, and you're not going to have the same energy or enthusiasm if you're like, well, we have this huge player, we have Eminem here, we have Rihanna here, we have fucking Dead Mouse, and you can't expect it to be a banger the whole time, like everyone's always dancing. And so just like it actually sucked the joy out of seeing Dead Mouse whenever nobody was moving their body and nobody was like singing along or dancing or screaming or jumping whenever the beat dropped. Like to me, as someone who enjoys EDM, obviously, as someone else who's like, this is enjoyable music, I'm having a good time. I'm not disparaging that person, but what I mean is like taking this back to Wintergrasp or to Tolbarad for the zone that like I don't want to see a dead mouse. I just want to raid in the zone. Can you guys just win? And like that individual sucks the joy out of fucking everybody else. So I think what's important is to allow people to have their open world PvP, but be sure it's the people that really want to be there, you know?
Yeah.
That was a really long story, but there's my thoughts.
I have to give a shout out to one of my viewers in chat who said, "Way to not hand out drugs at the party, Blizzard, to get everyone dancing."
Yeah. Yeah. The breeding ground of the lawsuits. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't trying to. That was oh fuck. I wasn't trying to make
No,
any
no,
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 no, no,
no,
you're
no.
analogies
fine.
there.
But
I just
anyways,
it was just the wrong
I
I got
crowd
a little
for the
I
nervous,
think
but
wrong.
we're okay.
that's I was wondering where you're going with that, and that is
Yeah, it was incredible.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's like you said, it's just like don't incentivize players to do things that they don't
That's
enjoy,
right.
I remember, do you remember, I mean, the notorious kind of, what was it, the legendary quest that required you to play one battle or win one battleground, and people
Oh,
went
and it's a shit
ballistic over
show.
that.
People, yeah, people
Yeah,
lost
and
their
I was like, wait,
fucking
what? One
minds.
battleground? I win a battleground every lunch break. Like,
Right.
but for some people, they just cannot stand it, right? And I get that, and that's what
Yeah.
you have to kind of account for when you make an MMO, right? It's just that, like Candace said, it's just don't force people to do
Yeah.
things that they don't want to do if you want to have an actual virtual world, right?
And the thing is, like, if you just take the community that does exist and you make something amazing for them, then they're going to become the advocates for other people, right? Because they won't be able to shut up about it, right? They're going to tell everyone how awesome it is and how amazing it is, and they're going to, some of them are going to try to get you to get in on it, and you're going to see the
Yeah.
passion in their eyes and the fire, and you're going to be like, all right, well, maybe. this dude is just over the moon, so I want to feel like that. I'm sick of raiding
Yeah.
at the moment, maybe I'll try his thing, right? So, whatever it is. So, yeah, you don't have to force them. The community will do the work for you. And they'll bring the
Yeah.
right people, the people that are open-minded about the experience.
Yeah, and philosophically, of course, the virtual world is based off the real world. And one of the best things about the real world is I live in this world with so many talented people who are passionate and good at so many different things, artists or musicians or whatever. I don't have to do any of that, but I love, and I can't do a lot of those things, but I love living in a world where they exist,
Mm-hmm.
and sharing a space with them.
Yeah.
And that's how a virtual world should be, right? Like in Valheim, for example, again, just I don't like building bases really, but I like, being in a community where someone likes building spaces. I'll chop
Mm-hmm.
down a tree someone else can build, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
And that interdependence and that coexisting atmosphere is like the magic of a
Mm-hmm.
virtual world. So,
Yeah.
Alicine, what's up?
Yo, first of all, it was 3 battlegrounds required to win, not one.
Oh, correct.
So that would be 3 lunch breaks.
3 times as harsh.
Thank you for
Yeah.
correcting us. Thank you.
Yes, very important. But I actually did have a question. I wasn't just here to dunk on Chris. But when it does come to those like open world zones, especially when it's like server locked, how do you prevent the player base from like I'm going to use World of Warcraft for example. How do you stop all of those players from going 95% alliance? Because usually that's what it ends up. Like people love flooding. Someone else brought it up in chat too, but they like to be the huge winning force, and yeah,
Mhm.
that's the best feeling ever. And I'd imagine you'd have to provide incentives to make people want to fight. Like the giant orc army with your tiny group of people. So what do you do in that way? Like as a developer, what would you do to prevent people from wanting to flock and otherwise not participate?
I thought we agreed that we were only going to let people up with easy questions. Why?
Yeah,
Sorry.
You got 9
What?
minutes to
What?
solve faction imbalance. Let's
Why-
see what
Yeah,
why
we
do
can
you-
do.
Let's go. How do you
That's-
fix PvP? Thank you.
That's one of the hardest, problems that I think the industry is
Yes.
dealing with
Oh,
right
man.
now. It's
Well,
a great
damn.
one, though.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll tell you what I think doesn't work. I don't think incentives work. And unfortunately, I talk about this a fair bit on my stream because there's a lot of people that come by and ask that question. And I don't have a great answer. But one of the things I do think works is, denial of the play experience. You just can't play. If you're going to join the winning side, you don't get to play if there's too many of people there already. And I think, and that sucks, right? That answer sucks. But I do think it's one of the more
No, it makes
effective
sense.
ways, to handle it. Because, the psychology is, I care more about winning than I care about a fair fight, right? People don't usually will shortchange their experience in order to get the rewards. It's just in our nature, right? So once there's a perception that one side is better than the other or is more likely to win even by 5%, they're going to flock to that side. Very few people have that sort of underdog experience, mentality. I have that, mentality. I love fighting on the underdog side, and because I want to get better. My thirst and I want to quench the thirst of getting better, to being the very best, and the only way to do that is repetition and fighting, constantly and learning constantly. So, and some people have that, but a lot of people just want the rewards as fast as possible. So, yeah, it's a really difficult thing to incentivize. And I don't think incentives work because all it does is, you're trying to find this perfect mathematical point where the reward incentives are balanced in some way, and it's an almost impossible target to hit because of the previously mentioned player behavior. You just don't know how players are going to interact with this system, and so it has to be super dynamic and flexible based on, well, what happens if they all shift to the other side now to get the rewards, and So it's a really difficult problem to solve, but I don't think incentives work.
It's also
It-
compounded by, I'll just real quick, the problem of people being super connected, Discord, things like that, where people sync up and create like a community outside the game, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to be part of the community that's the most populated and active,
Mm-hmm.
and that your friends are in, and so that creates a problem in the game where it's hard to like, you know, um, that's why usually like the alliance is super popular for raiding or whatever, and then it's horde. They all like move together because they just want to be part of a community and
Yeah.
have a pool of players to play with.
Mm-hmm.
So
And yeah, just to also the you're also undercutting with incentives one of the key structures, and there are limits to the incentives because you don't want to undercut this key structures, which is if you win, you get more, right? I think most people agree that's the way it is, and that's the way it should be, right? Like, if I win and I get less than the guy who lost, right? That's a really uncomfortable place for players to be. And so, where really can the incentives go for the losing side or the side that is expected to lose more? Because once it upsets that balance, you've gone too far. And if you don't upset that balance, why bother, right? So it's you're right back to, well, the winning side just gets more, so I'm going to be on this side. Doesn't matter how much you offer me. So it's a really weird value proposition.
I have two, maybe three, technically, like shitty solutions to the problem. One, there are no factions.
Right.
Problem solved.
There you go.
But I mean, they're a beloved part of a player's identity. There's all these problems with not having factions, right? So that's why it's not like fucking no factions. Why like every MMO still has factions. It's still something that players crave. Two, more factions. Fucking 50.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Part of your identity? Sure, take it. 50 factions. Can't all fight us all at once. And by that I mean like the imbalance is whenever there's like 5 people on one team and 100 people on another team, right?
Yeah.
But if there's like many factions, there's a chance that you'll find someone of a different faction that's also in smaller number than you. Because actually the fun is having more people than the other faction. But like no one wants to be that guy, right? So that's shitty fix number 2. Shitty fix number 3 is that the map just has more choke points that are valuable. And so you can't cover them all. You like take the number of people, you add so many choke points that like no one can be in number in a way that matters at any one choke point. So you're kind of evening the odds of if there's a ragtag team of 3 pro players, it's possible they could like knock over one of those towers or something and have like meaningful progress by doing that. But that like eliminates a scoring system. That's all just like it almost ends up being like a PvP battle royale. Even if there are two factions or 50 factions or one faction, it just ends up being like every person for themselves, which I think also takes away from the spirit of world PvP. So those
Right.
are my shitty fixes, and they're not
All
good.
right. All right. Yeah.
And
And that's the struggle.
I
There's
just
just
thought of
so
one
many.
other thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, there are a billion things. There is a PvP mode in New World that I think is going to be around just contesting points in the open world, and they'll bestow buffs in the zone according to what faction, takes hold of something after an event. I mean, similar systems exist in WoW and, Guild Wars 2 with the World v World and Wintergrasp. But I was wondering, like, what if, and this is where all you game designers tell me what a bad idea this is, but what if it, like, you don't change whether somebody wins or loses, in a way that feels wrong. But if the team that wins, that continues to control the point, did so via overwhelming numbers, it's kind of like Vegas, betting odds, where if they've won with a giant number of people, the buff only ends up lasting, like 10 minutes or something for the whole zone every time they kind of reclaim it. But if the losing team won, because they were coming from behind so much, the buff would end up lasting, maybe a really long time because you just can't believe that team would have won it. Like, do you think that there are ways where you don't have to fully flip it so that the people who lose end up getting more points in a way that still makes it seem like if you do win from the losing side of this, though, like it's going to be a way sweeter pot. And so, yeah, I don't know. But I mean, it doesn't really work unless you're able to like actually recommit sides on the fly overall. So this sort of needs to go into like Candace's discussion. I don't know. I'm not a game designer, but
No, it's a really interesting notion. I wonder though. So, is what you're saying, uh, give people less reward for zerging, basically.
diminishing returns on the win.
Diminishing
yeah.
return. Yeah. But then
Right.
what's your answer there if you are the alliance person and like it's alliance dominated? Do you just not participate? Because like you
Yeah.
know that it's going to be a shitty
That's how I guess
overall
it would even
reward.
out. Right.
Yeah.
You'd be like, well, I don't want to show up because if like all of us do it, then this buff only lasts for,
Yeah.
you know, half a day as opposed to a week. So like there's no point in all of us showing up and zerging it. And then maybe because of the broken window effect, you end up having literally nobody show up. And then the Horde wins and they get this massive buff. And then the next time Alliance is like, fuck. I mean, I imagine this is sort of some of the thinking behind that kind of overwhelming odds flipping faction war mode weekly balance quest that would kind of go there and was supposed to ping pong, but you know, players will find ways to game literally anything
That's right.
here. But so you know, there's nothing foolproof. But I don't know. It's strange though, right? Because I feel like in real life and with sports and everything, like we love cheering for underdogs. We just never want to fucking be them for the most part. Like
Yeah.
we see ourselves in them, but I don't want to actually risk the pain of losing, right?
I
want
always
the
go
sure
back
thing.
to the foundations, you know, the pure game design of like forget about the rewards for a minute and just make an experience that's fun, make an experience that's fun to win and fun to lose, which is really, really tough to do, but the best PvP experiences pull off. But we've been so focused on rewards for our participation for so long that it's become the dominant force in the design. And that's what I worry about with some of these like PvP environments. You know, we're doing the thing that we talked about a lot earlier in the show, which is we're forcing people that don't want to be there to do them so they can get their reward chunks. And then we're trying to make the reward chunks balanced in some way based on the participation metrics. But we've lost sight of like what is fun, what's the fun experience for the people that want to PvP or do this thing and get them doing it. And the reward is just, man, this is just the game they want to play because it's so fun. And we've fallen into the trap of like, well, the only thing that's fun about it is the reward. You know, that's the only thing that anybody really cares about. But it's not true. The experience, I mean, how many games have you played that don't have a long-term reward and they're just a blast to play? So we need to go back to that kind of thinking, I feel like.
I mean, I want to say Dota, but that's like an entire episode.
Right.
And
But so it's possible,
but-
you know, like it's possible to just make us want to play a thing because it's amazing.
Well, I know Candace is a hard stop. Since I don't see anyone else on stage, y'all want to call it here?
Yeah, sounds good.
Come back next
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
Refreshed,
I
relaxed.
can't wait for
hopefully-
PvP Part 3
That's
to,
right.
what'd you say? 763?
It's on the
or
way to
whatever?
17. Yeah, we're on our way.
17, yeah.
One of these days we'll solve it. It's going to be great. Okay. Thanks us all for tuning in and chatting with us. We'll be back next week. Leave questions and topics and everything for us in the Discord. We will keep up with you. And as always, Chris is going to play us out.
Chris.
Oh,
Chris.
later, gamers.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was fun. Let me. Oh, we closed it to help me. All right, thanks very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back next week, hopefully, with another discussion. Please take that like button out for a nice walk on the beach. There's a lot of lawsuits going around, so, you know, be a gentleman, be a lady. But, yeah, take that like button out. and yeah, treat it well. And if you enjoyed it, I hope you did. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much for watching.